Like, what was the first real money-making business for you?
I started doing personal training, and then I started selling personal training for myself at the gym. Then I started selling it for other trainers, and I ended up selling like $1 million in personal training. And I was like, man, this idea is kind of crazy. And that was kind of my like, all right, dude, I can do this with everything. And then I started a dental office, a plastic surgery clinic, a marketing company, and then just went down that road.
You kind of like built wealth horizontally. You know, I did start a bunch of other businesses too, horizontally. But now I find myself in the stage where I'm just solely focused on anything related to real estate. Are you in that mindset, or are you still in the horizontal mindset?
You know, I'm going to give you two answers if I can.
Okay. What's going on, Wealth Builders? Today, I've got a guy who I absolutely love. This dude has been on reality TV, had the #1 show, Diesel Bros, has started, sold many different businesses, and he's been a speaker at WealthCon and just a good friend of mine. I've got Keaton the Muscle. What's up, man?
What's up, brother?
Bro, so you look really good from last time.
Thank you.
You've lost a lot of weight, man.
Yeah, I have. I've been going after that personal development thing, and fitness is one of those. So
yeah,
that's
I love
a big
it.
one.
No, you look great. And we were just talking beforehand about you've been doing a lot, helping people buy businesses without really using any money.
Yep.
So I definitely want to talk about that. But dude, for those who don't know, you just give a quick summary of who you are.
A quick one. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been building businesses since I was pretty much 21. Realized really quickly I could not work for somebody else. I couldn't go to school, couldn't do the grades, couldn't work for somebody. And from that time forward, I either bought businesses, started businesses, acquired partnerships in businesses. And then obviously, like you said, we did a reality TV show on a business that actually we started. We were the godfathers of the giveaway model, which you see a lot now all over social media. We were really the first ones to come out with it in about 2012. And we had that whole TV show around it where we gave away hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of trucks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just kind of continued down the path of building business after business, buying business after business. And then about 2 years ago, I was like, you know what? Not that I want to stop building businesses, but I want more purpose. And I got into this place where I was like, I really want to start coaching. I spent some time with Ed Milet, actually one of my really good friends, Sean Whalen. And they were like, dude, what are you doing? You got to start coaching. You have so much experience and knowledge from what not to do, you know? And I started Limitless Society about just over 2 years ago. And then we started doing big events, started pretty much coaching and teaching people how to have the life, not just build the business, not just make money. And that's great. But I got into this place of like, how can I create a better version of people? How did I do it for myself, and what can I teach people? And that's kind of what we're doing now. I still own multiple businesses, and we're just spending a lot of time coaching people how to go after that life they want.
Yeah. It's funny. I think our last podcast was over a year ago, and I can't remember if you were here before that podcast too. Didn't you stop by before we did the podcast?
Yeah. In fact, I think we had a podcast set up and you had a family emergency when I showed up, and I did it with Brian.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was really great. Loved connecting with Brian.
Yeah.
And then after that, we connected again.
Yeah.
And we did our first podcast.
Well, what I remember though was the first time you came, you were telling me about this crazy event you wanted to throw. And I was like, so you're trying to get every guy basically on social media? Dude, that's going to cost you a boatload of money.
Yeah. And you're like, and I was like, and I want to fill an arena with 10,000 people. And you're like, listen, man, I've done this.
Yeah. Like, chill
and
out.
You're biting off a big chunk here and you don't know what you're doing. Okay. But that's kind of my life.
Yeah. But you did it. You ended up doing it. And I can't remember if you did it before that podcast or after.
No, it was after that podcast was my first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I spoke there and you pulled it off, man. You had all these guys there. I mean, the arena was full. It was like 7,000 people or something.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I mean, I was like, I can't believe you pulled this off.
It was crazy. It was honestly one of the biggest headaches of my life. And it taught me a ton. And since then, we've done another one. Same thing. We did about 8,500 people in the arena. And man, those are hard. crazy hard. Now I know exactly what you were telling me when we first sat down, when you looked at me like, are you sure that's what you want to do? Because it's hard, dude.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's hard to fill it. The risk of everything is super high with all the upfront cost. And you don't know if it's going to actually be profitable or not, especially at that scale.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, bro. Like,
I know you just looked, you're like, all right, man, good luck.
Well, what's the plan with events going forward? I mean, now that you've learned that, I've seen you throw a couple of other ones.
Yeah, so I'm doing a mixture of smaller events. I built my house about 3 years ago, and when I built my house, I had the idea of wanting to do events at my house, and I can fit about 250 people in my living room. So I don't want to say I've shifted, but I'm doing smaller events more often. And then I'm going to still be doing those Limitless Arena events throughout the years, but I'm probably going to do one, maybe two of those. And then I'll do a lot of small events. That's kind of the plan.
Dude, you know, it's so funny. Now I'm remembering on our podcast, you talked about building that house on the mountain.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know, maybe we'll B-roll it while this is going on. But I mean, the house is sick.
Yeah.
It's by itself on the mountain. And you told the story how you just built it without a permit. You were just like, I'm just doing this.
Dude, you know what? Funny enough, I got in huge trouble after our podcast because that same time I told you I built my house without a permit and that I was flying around my helicopter.
Yeah, you're flying a helicopter without.
Dude, the FAA called me after they watched that clip and they were like, hey, we saw this clip where you told everybody you fly without a license. And I was like, yeah, but I told you I had a pilot with me. And they're like, oh, okay, you're good. It's like, all right. So now I know the FAA is watching your podcast.
Well, there we go. That means the FTC and everyone else too. So we got to be careful. So with that, it was funny though, because you're like, yeah. And then, you know, I had to fight this legal battle and all this stuff's going down. And then I saw you had posted on Instagram, like your pool like fell over or something.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, I was like, I wonder if he should have got a permit.
Should have had a permit.
Like, what happened to your pool?
So the pool, I actually, because I had fought with the city so much and they're like, you can't build a pool. I was like, okay, cool. Thanks for telling me. And I built it. Ended up building it, however, you know.
This massive pool.
What ended up happening is water came underneath the pool, washed the front of the pool out, and it ended up cracking and breaking, which realistically, I did have engineering and everything. I just didn't have the city's permission. So even with the city's permission, it still would have happened. But I ended up building that pool, cracked, ripped the whole thing out. And then I finally got a new pool in, I don't know, 6 months ago. It's been a nightmare with that.
Dude, how much did all that cost?
I'm $1 million into my pool right now. I'm $1 million into my pool. The first pool was about 400 grand. Then I was like 250 for tear out. Then I was 100 grand for engineering, and I'm 250 into the new one. Like, a lot. So every time we swim, I'm like, all right, cool. This was $100,000 swim for my kids.
You guys stay in that pool.
Yes. They're like, why are you heating it in the middle of winter? I'm like, because we're going to get every ounce of use out of this pool possible. That's why.
I love it. Yeah, dude. When I saw the pool break, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about business, right? You've done a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, you've told me so many things you've done, but I don't think we talked about this. Like, what was the first real money-making business for you?
You know, one of my first businesses really was, I think, what sparked everything in me, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But when I was 21, I ended up going to a gym and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a personal trainer and kind of do my own thing until I kind of figure stuff out. And I started doing personal training, and then I started selling personal training for myself at the gym. Then I started selling it for other trainers, and I ended up selling like $1 million in personal training. And I was like, man, this idea is kind of crazy. So I then launched a personal training company that was mobile. We called it MoFit for mobile fitness. Mm-hmm. And I literally started going door to door, knocking on doors. And I was like, hey, you don't need a gym. You don't need equipment. I can have a trainer come to your house and I can help you get in shape. And then I went and I started acquiring trainers. I ended up having about 7 trainers that worked from 5 a.m. till 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And dude, we were doing all kinds of cash payments, you know, like whatever. And I was just, dude, I was knocking doors. And when I was 21, 22, I started to sell about $70,000 to $80,000 a month in personal training. And I was paying my trainer's decent for a personal training wage.
Yeah.
But I was seeing massive income.
How old were you?
I was 21, 22.
Okay. So I know you're in Utah. Did you go on a mission?
I did. I was LDS missionary.
Okay. So is it just the default thing out there? Like, dude, whatever first business is, we're knocking doors.
I think, dude, it's funny. So the number one place to take door-to-door sales guys is from Utah, right? Because you learn, and you know this, like the hardest thing to sell is Christianity or like religion.
Yep.
And you send these kids out who
you're
know
doing
nothing.
it for free.
Yeah, you're doing it for free and you're getting the door slammed in your face all day long. And you know, the more you get a no, the easier it is to start getting yeses because you're like, all right, man, they've said everything possible. So I think that when you realize that any business is a numbers game, which most missionaries know, like, dude, if I knock on 100 doors, at least 10 people are going to let me in the door. Okay, I got 100 doors I got to hit a day. Yeah. Then you realize that in business. And then when you come home from your mission, you're like, I can go work for somebody and make a shit ton of money being a door-to-door sales guy. Or like me, you go, well, it's just a numbers game, man. I'll start a business and I'll just start knocking on doors. And after 1,000 doors, I guarantee you I can make some good money.
Yeah. After being in business so long, I just started, I'm like, wait a minute. Every door-to-door company is based out of Utah. Yep. And I was like, oh,
that's why.
The training ground is already there.
It's already there, dude. And everybody there just got back from their mission. They had been knocking doors the whole time. They were selling the hardest thing that's possible to sell. And they're like, oh yeah, you want me to sell pest control? I'm in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you just kind of look from your experience. You're like, all right, I'll go knock doors. I'll set up a door knocking team and we'll go and slang personal fitness coaching.
Yeah. And dude, that's what I did. I knew nothing. I didn't know how to start an LLC. I didn't know how to do taxes. I knew one thing, and it's still the one thing that I teach even in my business stuff is like, if you don't have sales, you have nothing. Yeah. You can have the coolest logo, the coolest building, the coolest marketing. You can have the coolest structure. But if you don't have sales is the lifeblood of any business. And I just worked it backwards. I was like, you know what? I'll just have sales and I'll worry about everything else, which is ultimately what I did. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Yeah. I didn't know how to do payroll and all that shit. But I was like, dude, I'm just going to sell my ass off. Yeah. And that's what we did.
Yeah. So you do that. How long did you end up doing that for?
I did that for 2 years. And then I had made so much money. I bought into a gym, a huge gym. It was like a 65,000 square foot gym. I brought that into the gym. I structured a deal with the owner to buy in to 50% equity in the gym and in the building. Brought my personal training company in, where ultimately we were a gym that did personal training in-house and personal training mobile in people's homes. And that was kind of my like, all right, dude, I can do this with everything. And then I started a dental office, a plastic surgery clinic, a marketing company, and then just went down that road.
Okay. So, you started really in the fitness space.
Yeah.
Obviously TV came along at some point during this journey. Was there any other business you would say that really kind of started, like, dude, because you don't just buy a house on the mountain, slanging personal training.
Yeah.
So like, where do you think most of the wealth started to come from?
So I realized that my best route, and it took me a while to do this, but my best route was I am only so good in a few aspects. So then I need to learn how to build a team, or I need to build a good partnership that can do all the shit that I am not good at.
Yeah.
So then I started instead of starting this business and building this business myself, I'm going to go into a partnership, or I'm going to build a team around all the stuff that I'm not good at. This is the number one thing most entrepreneurs do wrong. They want to do everything. They want to micromanage everything. But if they could identify like, hey, I'm good at this, and I'm going to pay to do this, this, and this, and this, so I can actually build something big. And I didn't realize that until I was 12 businesses down the road. And I'm like, you know what, dude? I don't want to be 100% owner anymore. I don't want to run everything. I don't want to do all the sales. I don't want to knock on every door. So then I got into this place where I started structuring deals in partnerships. I started structuring the infrastructure of building, right? Like, hey man, if you come in, I'll pay you X amount and I'll give you sweat equity. I started to actually build real businesses with real infrastructure and real partners. So now instead of one business that made me $1 million a year. I've got 7 businesses with 7 different partners. Each one makes me, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. That's how I really started to like grow to make real money.
Would you say that like those 7 different businesses were all in similar nature, or are they all random?
They were all over the place, man. I'm not
what
kidding.
Were some examples?
So personal training,
Yep.
dental office, plastic surgery clinic, energy drink company, marketing company, supplement company. I mean, dude, it was just kind of all over the place. An apparel company.
Was it these guys had that idea / business already, and then they came to you for like help or funding?
No, and I think this is something everybody should hear. Nobody's going to come to you until you've proven yourself, right? So like when I was younger, I had to make my way. No one was coming to me the way they come to me now. Yeah, I mean, you know this. Dude, you get 5 DMs a day. Hey, I want to start this business, or I want you to partner in this business with me because you've proven yourself, right?
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you don't have that. So I had to create like, well, what do I want to do? What can make money? Where's a void that I can sell a product or a service? And then from there, I would identify in that field who I could bring in as a partner. So I would go, like an energy drink company that we started. We had this huge back-end energy drink guy who had just finished with, I cannot remember the name of his company, but I sat down with them and we were like, hey man, this is what we want to do. It was with the Diesel brothers and they put this whole thing together. We know we can market, we can sell, but you do all the back end. We realized that if we can't do this with you, we're never going to be able to do this. We identified something we could sell. We knew we could find someone that could do it. And then we partnered with them. But dude, not until I was probably literally maybe 30 did anyone come to me and go, let's partner, let's do this together.
Yeah.
It was always me finding, okay, I know I can do that in that business, but I need that person. So I would have to go set up the deal.
Yeah. So you were just a deal maker.
Yeah.
All the time. And so the energy drink was promoted through the TV show?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I imagine that did pretty good.
It actually bombed.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not a good deal because what ended up happening, and I don't know how much I want to talk about it, but it was not a good deal on our end because the profit margins that were told to us were not really what it was supposed to be. And funny enough, we did the whole like taste testing and everything, and it turned out like this is what we wanted. And then when they got produced, it was not what we wanted. So it was not really it was not a good deal.
So it was an experience though.
Yes,
right?
that you learn from.
Yep. And I've had plenty of business failures too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a good point to talk about because a lot of guys will look at you or me and say, dude, like, look at what you got going on. Right. And, being a public guy, right? Well, okay, this energy drink didn't work while you guys are like huge on TV. So I'm sure it had a lot of negative crap going on with it. How have you used all the failures to kind of like, well, I guess number one, how do you get through the failure? Because most people, they encounter this wall of failure and then it just wipes them out.
I think, and this is something I was actually just recently teaching on. I think that when you change your perspective, a real perspective shift allots you the ability to see everything as it really is. And dude, we always talk about like, well, you never get anywhere without failure. And that's easy to say. But when you're in the midst of failure, you're like, dude, I don't want to hear that shit. I'm getting my ass kicked right now. I don't want to hear another failure is the way to my success. But dude, if you step back in anything you're doing and you look at it truthfully in real perspective and you go, you know what? For me to become successful at this, I must fail at least 99 times to get there.
Yeah.
So in this journey, if I know that and I go, all right, I just failed. Cool. That's one closer to 99. And then on the journey, you're just tallying them up, man. I'm making failure after failure after failure, and I'm pivoting after pivot after pivot to get to where I want to be. And when you have a real perspective, you step back and you look at it as a whole and you go, okay, man, for me to make $1 million, I'm probably going to have to make 100 failures.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me fail faster. One of the things I tell people is for why I mentor, I don't mentor because I know everything. I mentor because I've done everything wrong. And I can show you what not to do in your business, in your growth. Somebody said to me, I started mentoring marriages. I started doing marriage masterminds and stuff. And I've been through a divorce. And all the time I get people, why are you talking about marriage? Your first marriage failed. And it's like, dude, do you understand that the most powerful person in the room is the one who has failed the most? Because truthfully, people who are not powerful fail 1 or 2 times and they quit. Really powerful people fail a lot and then they succeed. I would rather take advice from a business owner who has failed 10 times and made the 11th a success than a business owner who has failed 1 time or a business owner who has only built 1 business. That's where the problem is in our society. It's like, dude, you're looking at failure like it's a wrong thing. Let me tell you why I'm good now at teaching marriages. I had a beautiful marriage that I failed in, and I learned from those failures to put into my next marriage. And now I have a beautiful marriage from the failures of my first. So when I teach you, it's not telling you don't do these things because I don't do them. It's don't do these things because I did them and it didn't work.
Yeah.
That's why I'm teaching it to you. And it's the same thing in business. Why do I listen to you? Well, dude, because I did that already. I failed at that.
It's not going to work.
And it's going to cost you a ton of money and it's going to be the worst thing ever. So again, when you're talking about, well, how do I get through failures? Dude, I step back and I go, I know I'm going to fail and I accept that. And my journey to success is going to be led with a ton of failure. And if I know that, then I'm just moving from failure to failure to failure. And then the truth is, which we hear, the cliche saying, there is no true failure except for quitting. But the problem is that most people fail and then they quit. And that's why they're like, this is where I am. I never did that. I'm maybe only good at one thing. I'm really good at failing to the next failure. That's maybe all I'm good at. Yeah. But I will continue to do that until I succeed. And by the time I succeed, I'll have a whole book of what not to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. And I'll tell you this, it's interesting because I would say probably my first 4 businesses that I launched after house flipping were all just major successes.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I got smacked in the face from the failures that I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't know as much as I think. Like, this is interesting. And now when I, if I'm on this podcast or I'm at an event or I'm coaching somebody, I mean, number one, I can relate better because I truly didn't really fail that much, starting out. I got lucky, I would say. Yeah. But number 2, I would say it's like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like I did it.
Yep.
Here's what it's going to cost you if you choose to do it. I'm just telling you.
100%.
So I got a question for you because this is something I've now realized and I'm curious your take. You kind of like built wealth horizontally. A little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit of a lot of places. And I would say I think real estate was the main thing, but I did start a bunch of other businesses too, horizontally. But now I find myself in the stage where I'm just solely focused on anything related to real estate and I'm just blinders on, and so that means, hey, you know what? Let's just flip in wholesale and really do as good as we can at that. Hey, you know what? Yeah, we've had other coaching and different things, but let's just solely focus on flipping and wholesaling for education. Let's focus on lead generation for real estate. Let's focus on CRMs and things for real estate. And so now I find myself just going very deep on one thing. Are you in that mindset or are you still in the horizontal mindset?
I'm going to give you 2 answers if I can.
Okay.
That's the smartest mindset.
Okay.
It is, truthfully. Like, I know if I had gone vertical in one and gone deep in one, I probably would have made way more money. Like, I look at people who have exited companies for 50 million, 100 million, and I'm thinking, man, if I would have stuck to one for
even
years and years. Yeah, the fitness business, the plastic surgery clinic, the dental office. We ended up building another dental office in Arizona, and I was like, I'm bored with this. Let's go do something else, right?
Exactly.
I think the greatest route is to find what you're good at and do it and go deep. And like you said, put horse blinders on. I think the people that are listening here that have something that works, go harder at what works.
Yeah.
But my second answer to that is I don't find a lot of pleasure and happiness when I get bored with something.
Yeah.
And I have really bad ADHD. I know that. So what I like to do is I like to go, you know what? Let's get this started. Let's do this. Let's make some money and then let's move on to the next thing. And truthfully, I would be more wealthy today if I had done what you just said. That's why I teach that. But I also know that there's people like me. And those people are so all over the place. They're the dog chasing the squirrel. There's still a ton of money to be made. I've made a ton of money doing it the other way. But now in my life later, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick harder on this. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to go deeper on this. I'm still going to have a lot of things, but those things are going to have infrastructure implemented so that it doesn't take my time. And I'm going to keep my time and energy on one thing. And I know that that will serve me a better way.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, dude. It's just, you go deeper on one thing. It makes the one thing way better.
Way better.
You're less stressed. And then truthfully, like you said, if you're doing so good at the one thing, you can get bored.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, this is like, there's nothing left for me to fix.
Yeah.
And so you kind of look at the situation and you're like, all right, well, I guess it's time to do a new thing, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I used to be and kind of how you've been too.
Yeah.
But one thing that I have found now going deeper is just realizing the scale of what's possible.
Yes.
And we all just, here's the thing I've realized. We all just put these self-imposed artificial caps on what we think is possible.
Yeah.
And so I think for you in those early days, and even for me, you're like, oh yeah, as long as I can get it to making me 200,000 a year, 300, like that's good.
Yeah.
That's the cap. Cool. Let me get another one over here that makes 3 and another one that makes 3. And let's do that.
And the truth is that if I would have taken one of those, I could have had one of those making me 3 million.
Yep.
But here's the thing that I missed when I was younger. That's not where the real wealth is. The real wealth is the exit.
Yeah.
I was just with my good buddy, Eric Spofford, who sold his company for $115 million.
Yep. He's been on.
And I'm like, dude, I look at that and I go, Keaton, that's what you could have done. Now, I'm not complaining about what I did, dude. I've made millions of dollars all over the place, but I would have made a huge exit if I would have put horse blinders on at some point in my life and said, hey, dude, go deep, make this work, go hard at this. But I could also tell you again, I would have been bored as shit and I would have been unfulfilled. And the way my mind works, it's really hard to do that. Not to say that isn't the right answer, but it was hard for me to ultimately do that. And now as I get older, I'm realizing that. But I think there will always be that piece of me that's like, dude, let's light everything on fire and let's just rock and roll and kick the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, But again, I also think there's that hybrid of like, all right, I know exactly what you're saying, dude. And one day I would love to exit something for $100 million. But in the interim of that, I'm going to make 100 million from 10, 15, 20 companies.
Yeah. I would say for me, for just everyone listening to get like the perspective, because I would say we were both of the same thought process,
Yeah.
up until maybe the last few years.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe I'm not as bored as you get.
Yeah.
But I think what now fuels me to stay deep is the constant pursuit of, okay, what's the next problem to solve?
Yeah.
How does it keep getting better? Instead of like, oh, this is good enough. This has reached its cap.
Yeah. And there's no such thing as a cap too, right? Like you just said, we get into this place, even in a small business, and we're like, dude, I think that we can do $1 million a year in this business. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why can't you do
point.
more?
And that's the point. We all have this artificial cap of, I was just literally talking to somebody about this. He was like, well, I was in the party rental business and it just seems like you can really only make this. And I was like, what do you mean? There are $1 billion party rental companies.
Yes.
He's like, what? Like how? I go, I mean, we're here in Las Vegas. Who do they rent all their stuff from on all these events?
Yeah.
There's some company out here renting all the stuff, making all the money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even couch flipping was my first like successful business.
Yeah.
And I was making $8,000 a month. And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of it. And I'm like, you go look at a furniture store. That's a couch flipping place, right?
100%.
These furnitures, these big conglomerates are $1 billion company. Like, no, there's just, can you solve the next level?
Yeah.
And I was at a little mastermind last week, in fact, in Austin, Texas. And it was like a just random thing, invite only. There was no like tickets or anything. And I met 5 different people who have done over $100 million in their business in a year, revenue.
Wow.
And I think half of them were education companies, which is extremely hard to do.
Really hard. And
then the other half were like product-based companies. One guy's like, building this protein company and then, all this stuff. And that really opened up my mind because I'm like, like I've heard of, education companies doing big numbers like a Tony Robbins or a Cardone or whatever, right? But like, wow, there's like people behind the scenes doing this thing.
Yeah.
And you start talking to them like, so what do you guys do? Like, how are you guys? And it's just sheer volume.
Yep.
Is what they're doing that's different. And in my mind, you place this artificial cap. You're like, oh, well, how many people really want to flip houses?
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, a lot.
A lot of people.
Like,
real estate's a huge demographic.
Yeah. But even you just have these artificial caps in your mind.
Yeah.
And I'm just giving one example because that was the most recent, but it inspired me. I was like, okay, there's a lot of problems to still solve in this business and that business, even the house flipping business. It's like, well, look at the biggest house flipping companies in the world. Open Door. Zillow got into it. Now, granted, they're not really profitable, but still, their valuations.
Their valuations. Yeah, because again, there's a very different.
Yeah, they're playing a different game.
They're playing a different game because one day when they get acquired, they are profitable.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, because I listen to that a lot and I spend a lot of time with big companies, small companies, and you do realize, and this is something I say all the time to the business owners that I mentor, is like, dude, you're the bottleneck to your business.
Yeah.
And that bottleneck is your own thought process of what am I capable of doing? And whatever you set that number to be, that is your ceiling. It doesn't mean that's the true ceiling. It means that's your ceiling. And it's the same thing. You even talk about like education companies that are doing $150 million a year. And I'm over here going, okay, dude, I'm doing 25 million and I feel like I'm capped out. I don't think that's really true. And I'm the only one that believes that. So I got to be the bottleneck to accept, all right, that's not true. I can make this thing go bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think even most of the guys that you have listening here, whether they're in real estate, whether they're building a company, whatever it is, there's no ceiling. There is no such thing as a ceiling. Like you even talk about couch flipping and you were doing $8,000 a month. Well, Ashley Furniture, who does couch flipping, is a huge company.
Yep.
And at some point that CEO went, what's the next problem? Let's solve it. Let's solve it. Let's solve it and keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. There's no limitation.
Exactly. And that's why I've just now realized anytime somebody tells me like they've hit a limit or a cap or whatever, and like, yeah, that's why I want to go into this now. I'm like, no, you haven't.
Yeah, dude, I tell people all the time why I mentor is because I spent the first 12 years of my entrepreneurship life without one. And I genuinely believe today I would be a billionaire if I would have spent the money to have an entrepreneur sit down with me and go, Keaton, you are powerful, you're good, but you suck at what you're doing because of this, this, and this, and you're doing these things wrong. You need to go deeper. You need to spend more time. You need to build this rather than doing what I did, which was by myself.
Right.
That's why I'm so adamant about it now. I'm like, dude, a mentor changes everything for you because they can take you in your bullshit unbiasedly and go, dude, this is what you're doing wrong. I promise you, I did that. And you don't need to do that anymore. And if I would have done that when I was 21, 25, 30, I'd be in a different place today.
Yeah.
Because we as a human being, we set limits on ourselves. We have these limitations, these ceilings, and none of them are true. We just don't know what we're doing. When you start flipping couches, you're like, dude, I'm making great money. This is as much as I'm ever going to make. Yeah. But if Ashley Furniture CEO would have sat down with you, he'd have been like, hey man, let's start a real business. And where would you be today from that?
Right.
Right.
100%. So let's talk about this, right? You've done a bunch of businesses. I have as well. And a lot of people are trying to figure out what kind of business to start or what kind of business to buy.
Yeah.
Are you in the mindset of it's better to start something from scratch or to buy something?
That question I get asked a lot. So, we talked about this before we got on. I have a program where I teach people how to buy a cash flowing business. And which means tons of people want to come in and I can show you how to buy a cash flowing business with little to no money down. And the first question I get asked when they get into the program, should I buy a business or should I start a business? And my answer is always the same. It depends on who you are. I know human beings that are so talented that they don't even realize their talent, that if they would start a company, a product, a service based around their talents, they could probably start a business for less than $10,000 and blow it up to $1 million a year or $10 million a year because of how good they are. right? In fact, we know this. This is a real statistic I saw the other day. 64% of $1 million businesses started with $10,000 or less. You don't need a lot of money to start a business.
Yeah.
But if you're inadequate as a human being, meaning you don't know a lot, you don't have a lot of education, buying a business that's already making money is a great move for you. And by the way, that should be for anybody.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, like, is it better to start or to buy? It depends on who you are, man.
Yeah.
And I get to sit down with a lot of people that come into my program. They're like, hey, I want you to teach me how to start a cash flow or how to buy a cash flowing business. And I go, hey, man, it's not for you. I've spent some real time with you. You have some massive talents. We don't need to go buy a business. You can start one for very little money. And I promise you, you can 10x your income if you'll just listen to what I have to say about your talents to start that business.
That's good. So for buying a business, everybody's like, okay, well, how do you buy a business?
So it's really simple. I'll give you an overview. My program is simple. I have a year-long program, teach people how to buy a cash flowing business with little to no money down. Now, I told you when I was younger, I bought and started businesses. I didn't realize the shit that I now teach was valuable because it was just my own way of like trying to make something happen when I didn't have any money. We didn't grow up with money. I had to make things happen. So I had to learn how to structure deals. Well, there's an actual art to structuring deals, right? And in my program, it's actually really simple. There's 10,000 businesses a day that go up for sale. 10,000. Out of those, that's only maybe 1/4 of businesses that would sell today.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, for boomers, a lot of people have really good businesses and they don't know how to sell a business. So you know what they're doing? They're just shutting it down. They're retiring.
Yeah.
So there's all these businesses that are going up for sale. There's all these businesses that would go up for sale. And there's all these businesses of old people that are like, we're just going to get rid of the business.
Yep.
So when you realize that that's the real demographic, like that's a shitload. That means it's a buyer's market, not a seller's market. Then I go in and I go, you know what? All right, how do I acquire a business? Very simple. You find a business and there's businesses from $50,000 to $5 million to $50 million. I took my idea of how I structured it and I started to put together this whole program of how you would do it. How does it make sense? Now, when I tell people you can come in and start a business without any money or little money, I don't like to say without any money, although I do have a lot of people in my program that have bought businesses for $0 down. I like to set an expectation. It's very simple. And the program is simple. You come into a business, you sit down with the seller and you say, are you interested in selling your business? Yes, I am. Okay, what's the price? Number one, you need to learn how to evaluate a business, which is something I teach in my program. You learn how to evaluate. You make sure that what they're saying the business is worth, it's actually worth. Then you come up on an agreed price. Let's say you have a business right now that you want to sell for $1 million. We went through the evaluation and I think it's worth $1 million. And then I ask you, would you be interested in seller financing your business? What would you say?
No.
Why?
I don't really know what it is.
What do you mean?
Oh, if you're a seller, a lot of sellers may not know what it is.
Yeah, they may not know, but also you would say no because you would say,
I want cash.
I want cash.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where the program comes into play. And this is it shouldn't be a secret. So Ryan, if I buy your business right now for $1 million, how much money do you take home?
I mean, if I know taxes, then...
Which most people don't. That's why we have this conversation.
Yeah.
But you know that if you make $1 million, what are you going to pay in taxes?
About 40%.
Yep. You're going to pay $400,000 to $500,000. So now I look you in your face and I say, Ryan, do you want to take home $600,000 today? Or would you entertain an idea where I put $1.1 million in your pocket over the next 5 years? Then what would you say?
Well, that's like twice as much. That sounds pretty good.
Right? That's what I think. And ultimately, I would rather have 1.1 over 5 years than I would $600,000 today. And 99% of people, when they hear that, are going to go, okay, I'm listening to you. So if the tax structure makes sense, that I buy your business today for $1 million, you're going to turn around and pay Uncle Sam $400,000, $500,000.
Yep.
What if I could give you something down and I could finance the business through you, and over the next 5 years, I would pay you out more than you're asking for your business. I would pay you interest on your financing because truthfully, you're becoming my bank, and I'm going to pay a bank if I go get a bank loan interest. So I want to pay you. I'm going to pay you 10% on your business that you financed to me. So you asked for $1 million, I'm going to give you 1.1. We're going to do it over 5 years. Now, to show you I'm a serious player, I am going to put some money down. And in my program, I tell people to plan on about 10% down. Simple.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to come up with $100,000. Now, if your business is worth $1 million, that means your business is cash flowing about $30,000 to $35,000 a month. Like it's making that, not revenuing. That's the only way that you would get that type of an evaluation.
Yeah, just so everyone's clear, we're talking about EBITDA, and that means that the business is valued at 2x to 3x EBITDA.
Exactly. And the easiest way to do that, and this is what I teach in the program, the first thing you do when you sit down with a business owner is you say, hey, can I get your P&Ls? I want to see your P&Ls so we can come up with a real valuation. In the P&Ls, you have the two numbers, your revenue, and then the very, very bottom is your net number, which is also equivalent or close to your EBITDA, right? You take that number and you multiply it by 2, 3, 4x, like you said. And at $35,000 a month cash flowing, that's going to work out to be your business is worth $1 million. So now I sit down with you and I say, all right, man, so you're on board with making 1.1 over the next 5 years. I'm going to give you $100,000 down as my 10% down. I'm going to finance for the next 5 years, and I don't have the exact numbers because I'm not a calculator, but let's just say that I'm going to finance you $15,000 a month for the next 5 years. $15,000 a month is about 180.
Yep.
Times 5 years is
900.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
So now you're at your $1 million evaluation. Now I told you I'm going to pay interest on it.
Yep.
So I'll tell you what, I'm going to finance $17,000 a month to you for your business over the next 5 years. I'm going to put $100,000 down. What does that work out to be? It's going to work out to be about 1.1.
Yep.
Your business is cash flowing $30,000 a month.
Yep.
That means I just took your cash flow. I put $13,000 into my pocket and $17,000 into your pocket, and I took over your business for $100,000. Now, we're playing this on a bigger level than most people are listening. Like most people are like, well, I don't have $100,000. Cool. There's businesses from $50,000 to $500,000 that are for sale every day. So maybe you only have $25,000 in your pocket. Cool. Then look for businesses that are worth $250,000. That's kind of your bare minimum. That's where you look. You start to say, okay, here's my budget. Here's how much cash I actually have. Now, you may be able to structure the deal and go, you know what? I don't want to put any money down. So instead of 1.1, I'm going to pay you 1.25, but I don't want to put any money down.
Yep. I'll just take it over.
Right? I'll just take it over.
Or you get a private lender.
Exactly. So now if you hear this, you go, okay, so I'm going to take over a business. I'm going to use the cash flow from the business to pay for the financing of the business. It's going to pay out more to the business seller over this time. They're going to make more money, and I take over and I start putting cash in my pocket today.
Yep.
That's ultimately what I teach. And then what you tell somebody is you go, hey, by the way, when I pay you $180,000 a year, can you write off $180,000? Yep, pretty easy. I can't write off $1 million. Most people can't, but I sure as shit could write off 180, which means you put that into your pocket. So at the end of the 5 years, you put 1.1 in your pocket instead of 600 today. Would you really be stupid enough to say I want $600,000 today or 1.15 or 1.125 or whatever that number is over the next 5 years? See, when people hear this, it starts to make sense and you go, well, shit, dude, I'm 65. I was going to sell my business and I was going to take that cash. But if I could retire today and still have income and make that money over the next 5 years and put 1.1 in my pocket over the next 5 years as I retire, hell yeah, I'll do that deal all day long.
Yeah.
And that person that structured the deal did it in a way that puts cash in their pocket.
Yep.
Dude, I'm taking people right now that make $5,000 a month. They're going out and structuring a deal with a $400,000 business, and they're putting $5,000 to $10,000 in their pocket in 30 days from literally acquiring a business in this method. And I would say, again, I don't like to advertise that I can show you how to do it with $0 down. There's going to be some type of a like, hey, most of the time people are going to want some money down. But dude, I'll bet you 20% of the people that I teach this to can structure a deal so well, they don't put any money down. Yeah. $0 down. Now they're getting to this place where it's like, I put no money down. This bank or this business is cash flowing me $30,000 a month. And I was making $5,000 a month last year.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And that's ultimately the program. I mean, there's a lot more to it, right? There's a lot of curriculum on how to structure, how to evaluate, how to put your contracts together, how to actually have a real conversation. Something you don't need to learn, right? Like, you're good. I know you're a hustler. Most people don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to hustle. They don't know how to strike a deal. We're even watching Trump do it right now with all these other nations. People are losing their minds like, oh, he's burying us. No, he's not. Dude, he's structuring deals right now. You watch what happens. You're right, dude. Shit might tank for a minute. You watch what comes from this. He has learned the art of structuring deals. Yep. And the art of structuring deals is making moves that sometimes don't make sense. But when you learn how to structure a deal, and that's the biggest thing I teach in the program, dude, you can do anything. You can go buy real estate. You know, you structure deals all the time with real estate. And here's the best part. This is my greatest sales pitch. BlackRock does this. All these big private equity companies are literally doing exactly what I teach. They're just doing it on a much bigger scale. When Eric Spofford sold to a big private equity company for $115 million, do you think they wrote him a check for $115? No. They wrote him a fat ass check and they said, over the next 2 to 5 years, this is what you're going to get. Plain and simple. Why? Because of the tax strategy behind it. Eric, if we write you a check for $115 million, you're writing a check for $50 million to Uncle Sam. But if we write you a check for 50 today and $5 million for the next 5, 10, 15 years, you can write that off and you keep that money in your pocket. All the big companies are doing this. Why would we not do this on a smaller scale with smaller businesses? That's the whole process of what I teach in the acquisitions of buying a business.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Deal structure is super important for building wealth, real estate, business, partnerships. You know, it's all the same thing. Yeah. The only thing that I think about, you know, somebody who's listening to this, right? The guy who was making, say, $5,000 a month and now he's got this business. He still doesn't know how to run a business.
Exactly.
So this business could tank at any moment.
Anytime.
So my question is, you know, how do you deal with that?
That's the other part of the program. When I tell people that this is a year-long program, let me tell you what it is. I can show you how to acquire a business. I can help you structure the deal. But if you don't know how to grow a business, what the hell are you doing getting in the pool? Yeah. Don't do that.
The business is going to go under.
Exactly. And what I teach is how you identify when you evaluate a business, what is the business doing wrong? When I look at a P&L and they're doing $1 million and I go, why have you only spent $500 in marketing? Why do you have $0 set aside for commissions? Why do you have no infrastructure in place? Like, you can start dissecting companies that are doing pretty well and look at all the things they're doing wrong. That's the business I want to buy because they're doing everything wrong and they're still making a good profit. So the second part of the program is, how do you scale a business? And you and I both know those are very simple principles. They're 101 stuff. It's marketing, it's sales, it's infrastructure. But if you don't take the time to learn that, you can acquire the business and then guess what, man? You're on your ass in 3 months because you're like, I bought a business that was doing well. I didn't know what I was doing. Cool. Then you should learn how to scale a business. And that's that second part of what I teach, is like literally taking a human being who's inadequate at whatever it is and go, hey, man, this is how you identify a business that can grow. And then this is how you grow the business. You need to identify how their marketing is. What are they spending? How is their sales team? How's their infrastructure? How's their product development? How well do they pivot? All of those things that you and I do on a daily basis of how do I make this better, I teach in that program. If you can't take a business and scale it, don't buy it. And if you don't know how to scale it, learn how to scale it. That's why the program is a year long. People that get in the program can acquire a business in 30 days. Well, guess what, dude? You got another 11 months of me teaching you how to scale that business. And the best part is you should learn how to sell that business. Because if you can flip a couch, you can also flip a business. If I can buy a business today that is worth $1 million and I can just turn up the knob just a little bit and I can make that business worth $2 million in the next 18 months, why wouldn't I do it, scale it, and then sell it and do it over and over and over again?
Yeah. It's a nice flip.
Yeah.
It's a nice flip.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on all that. I've seen so many things in business, from starting businesses to partnering on businesses. You know, I've gotten into businesses with no money because of just who I am, and people are willing to give equity and all these things. So yeah, I've kind of been on all sides of it. And the only thing I could say for anyone listening is, at the end of the day, if you haven't been successful in making money yet, my biggest advice is don't do everything that you're hearing. So if you're like going to commit to buying a business, then you just go all in on figuring out how to structure a deal, buy a business, buy that one business, figure it out.
How to scale that one business.
Yeah.
Like I love the way you said that, dude. That's and I know you know this. You hear people that come into real estate that have businesses that have this. You're like, dude, stop.
Yeah. Don't even, if you do that, don't be like, man, okay, so I also need to get my rental property now.
Yeah. Don't do that shit. Wait until the income comes in to allot that through your assets and your income to go do those other things. I just barely started in real estate. I just barely started to acquire Airbnbs using money from what I make in my businesses that I can do that. I don't want to go like this. And again, I love it, dude. If you want to acquire a business, that's what you should do. And then you should go all in the education of acquiring it, scaling it, and actually blowing it up and making it work. It doesn't work. I hate when people come to me and go, well, yeah, dude, I'd like to buy a business and have it be passive income because, I got 15 other things that I'm doing. And I'm like, there's very few businesses that you could buy right now that you're not going to put any time into that are going to be successful. Yeah, it's just not. You want to be a business owner, go all in, dude. You don't get to do real estate. You don't get to do your 9 to 5 and a business and 15 other things. Yep. Entrepreneurship is hard as shit. It's hard as shit. What I'm saying is the route to get there, but you have to understand it is going to take all of you to make that business work, to make it profitable, to scale it. And then again, you can make a ton of money from it. But you got to do, like you said in the beginning, I got to put horse blinders on. All right, I want to buy a business. I want to learn how to scale the business. I want to make a shit ton of money from it. And then I want to sell it. Great. Don't do anything else. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. You said entrepreneurship is hard. What do you think is the hardest thing you've gone through?
Truthfully, I think the hardest thing about entrepreneurship is that it is not the big disciplines. It's the small ones. It's the ones that you think are such minutia. I think true success comes from discipline in anything, right? You want to get in better shape, it's discipline. You want to learn, it's discipline. You want to make a ton of money, it's discipline. I think we think discipline on this huge level. Like I got to do big things and big shit. But dude, for you to become successful as an entrepreneur, it is literally your daily habits and your discipline to those daily habits. When I break down for somebody how they scale their business, the first thing I do is I go over time management. I go, what does your day consist of? Well, I wake up at this time, I do this, I do a little bit of sales, I do this. And I'm like, dude, you're not disciplined at all in your daily habits. And I didn't realize that for the longest time. And I would say the hardest thing for me was realizing it's the smallest habits and disciplines that allot you the success that you want. And they feel so small that you don't think that they move the needle.
Yeah.
For me, that's truthfully, I think what it is. I've never seen anybody do these big disciplines and see success. It's the smallest shit.
What do you mean by big disciplines?
Like people, for example, I got a guy right now. He's like, dude, if I can just learn how to get funding, then I can blow up any business.
No.
Yeah. I literally, he wanted to pay me. He literally came to me, he was like, I will pay you X amount if you'll teach me how to get funding. And I said, okay, well, what about everything else? He's like, oh no, everything else I got. I can blow up a business. If I can just get funding, I can blow up a business. And dude, I ran him through. I said, what time do you wake up? What do you do in your day? Oh, I wake around. I said, do you work out? No, I don't work out. Do you take care of your health at all? No, I don't take care of my health. Are you married? Yeah. How's your marriage? My marriage is like a 6. Are you a parent? Yeah, I'm a parent. How do you feel like you are as a parent? It's a 6. I'm like, dude, you're not doing anything right. And you think you're going to be able to run a business? It is the smallest shit, dude. But he's here thinking, well, if I could just get good at getting funding, I'd make millions and millions of dollars. That's the big shit.
That's the missing key.
Yeah, dude, that's the big shit. It's not, dude. It's the smallest shit. I tell people all the time, if you want to make more money in your business, get in better shape.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how does that identify? I'm like, because dude, to get in better shape takes the smallest disciplines every single day. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you can't take care of your health, which by the way is the most important thing, you can't place into priority into your business what's most important.
Yeah.
So if I can't get up, work out, eat healthy, and drink water, I'm never going to blow that business up. And I tell people, if you get in better shape, you will make more money. And they always look at me like I'm stupid, but it's the smallest shit.
How do you think that's been affected you? Because like we said at the start of this show, right? You were 40, 50 pounds more than you currently are. And now you've gotten in shape. How has it impacted what you've done?
I literally was doing everything. Like I will tell you, as big as I ever got, nobody could outwork me. I was always the hardest worker at the gym. I was always lifting the heaviest weight. I was always doing the most cardio, but I ate like shit because I grew up in an era of powerlifting. I did not grow up for fitness or I wanted to be the biggest, strongest dude, and diet was never a thing. So when I decided that this is something I was going to do, I want to get in better shape. I realized it was going to be the disciplines to my diet, right? The smallest, stupidest shit. And as I started sticking to those disciplines, everything else in my business, in my marriage, in my parenting, I started to label out the small shit that created the big movement. The only thing that has changed in my life to get to the weight I'm at is the shit I put in my mouth. That's it. Yeah. I don't work out harder. I don't do cardio harder. I don't have a crazy routine. I don't take crazy drugs. None of that. It was the stuff that I put in my mouth.
And my point is you added a whole new layer of daily discipline.
Yep.
Which is really hard, especially with eating, right? And now you're in better shape than ever.
Yep.
And you said it impacted your marriage, your parenting.
Yep.
Your business, all of it.
Everything. And that's why, again, I'm so adamant about it. It's like, dude, it's the small shit. It's the small stuff. It's not the big stuff. It's not going to be the funding, dude. If you get funding tomorrow, you're not going to be able to blow that business up. Because you can't do any of the other things right. It's the smallest stuff. And I think even when you say like, I go deep and I'm focusing on solving problems, you're not solving big problems anymore.
No,
you're solving the smallest shit. You're solving the inefficiencies, the structures.
Yeah. Let me share kind of like what has changed in just daily habits. So I've been a pretty consistent person my whole life. I've always woke up in the morning, read my Bible, prayed, worked out. So like my weight's never really fluctuated or been a problem. In business though, where my shift has really happened is kind of like the things I look at and now just paying attention to detail. So before as an entrepreneur, you're this big visionary type guy. I'm like, okay, guys, like we're going to throw a big event.
Yeah.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
And then, thankfully I've always had good people around me who are able to just take my idea.
Your crazy ass idea.
Yeah. And they're like, dude, you have no idea what went into making this happen. And I'm like, that's awesome. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been great. And it gets you to a certain point, right?
Yeah.
And then it just dawned on me one day when I realized that, really in order for us to scale the business, I have to actually become a better marketer. And everybody's like, what do you mean? Like, you're good at social media. We see you everywhere. And I'm like, no. The greatest marketers in the world know every little detail of a marketing campaign.
Yep.
They know their cost per click, cost per lead.
Yep.
They know that at this level of scale, the ad will start to fatigue. They know their click-through rates. They know their conversion rates. They know what time to do something. They know, when's the proper time to get an upsell, an order bump, an ascension. There's so much little detail. And it's all part of selling the same thing that maybe I've always sold, right?
Yeah.
But I just knew, I was like, man, at scale, the biggest companies in the world know all these metrics.
Yep.
And if you're going to spend, if you're going to go from spending, say, $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month to $1 million a month.
Yep.
You better know those metrics.
Or else they will bury you. They will either make you crazy successful or they will bury you.
Yeah. It's just the stakes get so high.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of devoted myself to that for the last year plus. And I was like, man, every day.
And how has it affected you? Because I know you've had to have become more successful.
Oh yeah, much more. And with that, it's made me just like I said, it's like going deeper and going down that rabbit hole is not like a natural rabbit hole I wanted to go down.
No.
I do not want to look at the spreadsheets and the data every day, dude. I want to just do cool stuff.
Yeah.
I want to be like you and just ride helicopters and, get new pools and whatever, right? But I'm like, I'm going to be a nerd and I'm going to like just really learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's taken a year to like truly start to understand this, right? And you know what I did? I got mentors. I got the best people in the world to come. You know, I've had everyone in here. I just grill them, trying to learn as much as I can. And now I feel like we're at that tipping point where it's like, man, you know, this curve of like, oh yeah, we're making progress. And then all of a sudden it finally just
It
skyrockets. And I feel like we're kind of at that point where we're ready to skyrocket, even though we've been having success.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's going deep on a whole new skill that I never had to learn before. So I guess, you know, I don't even know what made me think about this, but for everyone here watching, there is the next skill to your growth that you don't currently have that you're going to have to really go all in on learning.
Yeah.
And so if you're somebody who doesn't even own a business, right? It's like, all right, well, crap, I don't know how to structure deals. That's the skill you got to learn.
Yeah.
Then there's some people who are doing, you know, 10,000 a month.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't really know how to get to 100,000.
Exactly.
Well, it's like, dude, honestly, you just got to sell.
Yeah.
Like that's the skill at that level.
And it's all just a little bit more education away. It's like you're telling me, dude, you're getting educated as shit in marketing.
Yeah.
And that education is what is going to allot the growth.
Yeah.
When I sit down with a human being that's doing $1 million a year in sales, I'm like, dude, we can get to 3 million. We can get to 10 million, but it will be new education that you get that you use.
Yep. It's a whole
and
new
again,
skill.
that's why you spend the money, you invest. I tell people now, like you should only be spending money on two things: personal development and business development. That's it. Until you're stupid, filthy rich, you can spend whatever you want on anything else. But if it doesn't go to education in you and education into your business to grow you and to grow your business, don't spend the money anywhere else. Because you want to change this, it's only with new information. And this is what changes the paper that you make. Plain and simple.
Yep. And it's just having the awareness to know what skill you need to go acquire.
Yeah.
There's actually a really good book called Ready, Fire, Aim. People should read it. And he talks about the different stages of business and the skills that you need. Yeah. And it's basically like, I mean, he goes from 0 to all the way up to 100 million, right? And he's like, sales is basically it for like quite a long period of time. And then he's like, yo, you want to go from 1 million to 10 million? You're going to have to learn how to market.
Yep.
Just pure sheer selling is not going to get you there. Right. And it's like, okay, like I figured that out. Okay. But I haven't done 100 million. And he's like, yo, you want to go from 10 to 100 million? That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I had my friend Tommy Mello here, who actually sold A1 Garage Doors a couple of years ago for 600 million as his exit. And he still owns half of it. And he's getting ready to exit for over $1 billion. And Tommy is our age.
Yeah.
He's been doing the one thing for 17 years.
Yep.
Just garage doors.
Yep.
Pretty boring. You would think garage doors capped.
Definitely not capped.
It's definitely not capped. But same thing. I was like, Tommy, like, what does it take for that next level? And, you know, you guys are doing hundreds of million a year in revenue. And, you know, they net, you've shown on the episode, their literal EBITDA was 60 million, which you do not see very often in a business. No. Net profit.
No.
Selling garage doors.
Especially a business that's that big of an evaluation. Usually that EBITDA is way lower.
Yeah. So he, at the end of the day, was like, man, honestly, to go from that to, 100, it's all your leadership team. He's like, I had to find the best people who've actually done it, that have taken companies public, gone from that. And it's like, dude, we as hustlers and entrepreneurs, we don't know that corporate America life.
No. But those people are the ones that take the business to that place.
Yep.
And it changes from what you know to who you know.
Yep.
Because then when you go, oh, this guy can really take my business to the next level, it's going to be very expensive. And he knows way more than me. And he's definitely corporate life, which again, entrepreneurs are like, I don't know what that is. Yep. But those are the people that do that.
Yeah. So that was what he was saying. And I was like, okay, it's good to know. I'm not there yet. I'm going to store it over here.
Yeah.
And that's important for people to know too. It's like, even with what I just said, you could take whatever stage I just mentioned for anyone listening. And if you're at 0 or 100,000, or a couple 100,000, you just need to sell.
That's it.
All it is.
Yep.
And I was actually, I got off a call with a guy who, he showed me like this beautiful blueprint and this plan. He had like 1 million slides and all these things. I'm like, you must be from corporate America, because this is how you guys do things. I'm like, what have you sold? He's like, not much. And I'm like, bro, quit with all this nonsense. Like, you ain't out here to go raise money and like pitch that, like go sell the thing.
Yeah. I love the way you put that. Like, I think for people listening, like that's really what you should hear. It starts with sales. It then goes to marketing, and then it heads to leadership. If that's really how you want to build something big, that really is the way to do it. And the problem is, again, and I see this a lot, people come to me all the time and they're stuck on the marketing or the leadership, and their sales suck.
They're not even doing anything revenue-wise. They're worried about the C-suite. And I'm like, bro,
get your ass out there and sell.
Go knock them doors.
Yeah. And then when you build decent revenue through sales, take the revenue and put it into better marketing and learn and grow in marketing. Then when you make more money through good sales and marketing, build your leadership team. It all works that way.
Yeah.
And I think people look at that way backwards.
Yeah.
Real estate investors, I found a brand new way to create cash flow that's better than anything else I've ever done. It's better than rental properties, Airbnb, my flipping business, multifamily. It's the best thing we've done yet. It is building an automated wholesale business. Now you might be saying, Ryan, how do you build an automated wholesale business? Well, what if you had the same exact leads that I get every single month? What if you had a sales script that was so easy to close deals over the phone that you could do it all across the country? And what if you could sell your deals directly on the MLS without a real estate license and without having to actually own the property and getting top dollar? Well, we do that with this new method. And I made an 11-minute video where I go over how it all works, how you can start doing it today. So if you want to go see that video, go to wealthyinvestor.com, go click the case study and see what I'm talking about.
So one of the biggest problems that I see from either people thinking about becoming entrepreneurs or even literally like people running businesses is fear. I mean, fear is like so prevalent in all of this. And I mean, it could be fear of failure, it could be, they just never even get started because they're afraid of failing. And I'm like, bro, you're going to fail. You suck.
Yeah.
You don't know anything. It's all good. Just accept it.
Yeah.
Or it could be fear of scaling, right? I'll meet guys who have a successful business. I'm like, bro, let's throw some fire on it, man. We got to start hiring people. We got to start spending more on marketing. And like, oh, no, like I'm good with, I don't know, dude, what if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, it's probably not going to work the exact way we think, but eventually it will.
Yeah.
If you get enough results and testing and everything else. And so it's just like fear is always preventing the next stage of growth. And one of the things I always like just tell people, I go, dude, fear and faith cannot coexist.
Mm-mm.
They are opposites.
Yeah.
And by default, if you're trying to grow, that means you're trying to get somewhere you've never been.
Yeah.
So it's like you either have faith that it's going to work out. You don't know how, but that's what faith is. It's not knowing how, it's just knowing that it will.
Yeah.
Right? Or you're going to have fear and you just never try to get there. So like, what are your thoughts on fear?
So I teach some really important principles around mindset. And one of those is that there's only really two types of mindsets: scarcity and abundancy. Like that's it. You could take everything and whittle it down to that. Someone who's depressed, anxious, it's a scarce mindset. Someone who's happy, who's joyous, who sees the good in all things, it's an abundant mindset. People who are led by fear are in a place of scarcity mindset. And if you can identify in yourself where you're scarce and where you're abundant, which most people are scarce the majority of time.
Yeah.
If you can identify that and actually inventory in your life, like where am I scarce? And then go to work on that mindset, because mindset is literally just the way you speak to yourself and the decisions that you make according to the voice that you hear. That's what it is. If you can shift the way you speak to yourself, the mindset that you keep, the thoughts that you entertain, and go just by a simple question, is this a scarce mindset? Or is this an abundant mindset? Even in that one question, it could stop a human being in their tracks to be present in a moment to go, you know what? That's a scarce mindset, and I'm not going to allot that.
Yeah.
As I do things like that on a daily basis, and I do it over and over and over, repetition, right? Over and over and over, I begin to get into a place where I can quickly identify this fear is from scarcity, and I choose not to be scarce. I choose to be abundant. So I will make the decision opposite to what feels natural. And by the way, scarcity is natural for human beings. That's why so many people are scared. It's why they lead their lives in fear. It's why they never really accomplish shit. It's why most people are mediocre, because their life is dictated by the fears they have in the scarce mentality that they keep. Very simple. If you can go and go deep, and this is one of the things Jim Rohn said, if you can work twice as hard on yourself as you do on anything else, you'll become successful. Well, this is where the work must take place. I must work on my mindset of scarcity and abundancy, and I should inventory where I am currently and then ask the question, where do I want to be? And ask that question over and over and over again. And then this is what's so dope about this. And I think this is one of the reasons why I'm successful. I used to lead my life in fear. I used to hate flying. Like I used to hate it.
Really?
But I learned very early on what I'm teaching right now. I learned this and I realized God actually gave me a compass as to where to go by giving me the fear that I have. Or I shouldn't say God gave me the fear, but feeling the fear that I have. So if it fears or if it scares me, if it puts fear into me, guess what the compass is saying? That's where you go.
Well, I would say it's actually Satan putting the fear.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to correct myself. I don't want to say God put the fear into me.
Satan's giving you the fear because 100%. He doesn't want you to do it.
He does not want you to do it. So if I identify, okay, I have not become successful because I fear things that have kept me from my success, I would then dictate, I know that that is the route to my success. Now I must dictate, where do I feel fear? Good, go. That's where I feel it. Let me take inventory. I'm scarce in my mindset of money. I'm scarce in my mindset of networking. I'm scarce in my mindset of what I can accomplish. Identify those scarcities, fill those fears, and then use that as a compass to move you towards what you should be doing. The reason I own a helicopter and why I fly, because I'm scared out of my mind to fly.
And
but
you always have a pilot.
I always have a pilot with me.
So just the
I do have my, I do fly, but that's why I have what I have. And guess what, dude? Some of my happiest moments in life are in the helicopter. It's been some of the joyous moments of my life that fear has kept me from all these years. But because I leaned into fear and I used fear as my compass, I now get to have the success that I have.
I've never heard anyone say that, but man, that's a good point of like, everyone should take a look at what they fear and look at it and just say, man, like, what am I so scared to do? Am I scared to start the business? Am I scared to invest? Am I scared to, fly? Am I scared to whatever, right? In most cases, a lot of people who listen to the show are Christian. Others are maybe not spiritual, but it's like, man, my belief is that anytime you do have fear, it's from Satan. I think that that's what the Bible teaches. And I mean, if he doesn't want you to do it, then
maybe you should do it.
There's probably,
I'll tell you,
some
dude,
really good things on the other side of fear.
I'll tell you a really cool story. I have a really close friend and she has struggled. We've had many, many conversations about her spirituality and her struggling in her faith. And she has refused to get in my helicopter. Refused. Brian's scared to fly too. We got to get so we need to get him up there.
Yeah, we're going to talk to him after this.
And funny enough, I finally got this person into my helicopter and it's somebody that I actually have mentored. And when we got in and when we went up to fly, guess what the first thing she said was?
This is great. She
said to me with tears in her eyes, this is the most spiritual moment I have felt for I don't know how long. That's what she said.
Yeah.
And I said, and you've stayed down on the ground out of fear for so long. And you've also told me that you've struggled in your spirituality for how long? Why do you think that fear was put into you? And like you said, you labeled it out. It was Satan. And if we know that he's the one that puts fear into us and we know that he wants the opposite of what we want, why would we not head into that?
Yeah.
That's how you should dictate everything. If it scares the shit out of you, perfect. That is a perfect arrow as to where you should go.
Yeah. I've never thought about that.
And the more people that do that, oh man, the more success, happiness, peace, the fruits of the spirit that they talk about in the Bible, the more you feel those things.
Yeah.
So that's where you should go.
I love it, bro. Well, dude, it's always great catching up with you, man. For anybody who wants to get in touch with you, where should they go?
The best place is my social media, my Instagram, _muscle. I get back to all my messages. I get thousands of messages a day, but I find joy in reaching out and actually connecting with people. So it's actually me in there. If you loved what you heard, I'd love to connect with you. You can get on my Instagram and message me.
Cool. Guys, go check it out. Make sure that you don't live in fear. You live in faith. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.